This is Thrasher, an arcade leaderboard chasing type experience that has you controlling a space eel as it navigates the galaxy, taking out all manner of foe in the fastest time as possible. This releases July 25th, 2024 for the Quest 2, 3, and Pro headsets for $20 US, and for this review, we checked the game out on the Quest 3. If this looks a little familiar, it's because the composer and artist behind this one were also behind the game Thumper, and while this may share some visual similarities, the gameplay is entirely different and honestly, pretty unique. Hello virtual boys and girls. Before we get to it, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button as it really helps us out. Subscribing keeps you up to date on our content, and if you have something to say, leave a comment below. I'm Ryan for the VR Grid. Now let's do this. So for those that don't know, Thumper was my 2016 VR Game of the Year, as it blew me away thanks to an intense soundtrack and engaging rhythm-like gameplay. Thrasher carries a very similar vibe, but the gameplay is totally different. So for those hoping for something like Thumper, this isn't that, at least as far as gameplay is concerned, but there's still something here that's very similar. There's no real story to speak of. In fact, the store description states, "Journey from the depths of primordial gloom to the heights of celestial bliss, culminating in a heart-pounding reckoning with a cosmic baby god." If that makes sense to you, well, you're the first, because that doesn't make any sense to me, and I played through the whole game. Story isn't why you play this kind of game though, as this is all about getting the highest score and beating the levels in the fastest possible time. So with either hand tracking or controllers, you control the head of the space eel and basically whip it around the map, kind of leading it where you are pointing. You can perform loops that start combos or break down some obstacles, with the goal of each stage to destroy certain colored lines, whether they're in circle form or bars, and once you destroy them all, you move on to the next stage. There are 9 stages in total, with each of them having a tutorial stage that teaches you a new mechanic, or maybe to use another mechanic in a different way, with these subsequent stages always getting harder and culminating in a final boss battle. You never develop any more powers, but stages will give you certain kind of boons that will help you out, be it these gems you can kind of throw in a direction, or a colored circle that lets you shoot singular blasts, a dash attack, another kind of dash attack, and a few more others that just, are designed to make this game more challenging and more fun. I will say that I tried both the hand tracking and the controller, and while the hand tracking worked well enough, I still felt the controller worked better, and it just felt more comfortable, more natural, and the face buttons just made it easier to use abilities as opposed to using hand gestures. So while I did try with the hands, I wasn't too successful and just stuck with the controllers. Each stage is a minute long, and your final score is based upon that and how many hits you take, which takes time off your score, which you don't want. Should you not destroy all your targets in that time, you lose. It's just that simple and are forced to restart that stage. My initial impressions of the game were actually fairly positive, as well there is a learning curve to this, especially with each new ability, as some of them can be quite challenging to use, especially in the later levels in any given stage, which just throw a lot at you. But as I progressed through the game, I found that luck played a larger factor than I expected, and I don't mean that in a good way. Thumper, for instance, relied solely upon your input, matching face button prompts and timing things perfectly to get the best score. In here, you have to destroy all your targets by flying through them, but depending upon the stage, that wasn't always easy. As a new level is introduced, they kind of appear from the background and just kind of are placed in the same plane as your eel. And when that happens, depending upon where you are, you could be instantly hit or maybe instantly get a power up. It really is kind of a gamble. And while I did kind of learn to move my eel out of the way when a stage came into place, it still didn't really help, as power-ups could be on the other side of where I needed to go, forced me to kind of navigate an extra few seconds to get there. And as the stages get harder, there's just more and more stuff on screen, and it kind of gets messy. I mean, even your eel through every stage gets larger and larger and larger, and then resets at the beginning of the next level. By that last stage, the final boss stage, it takes up a lot of the screen, and when you factor in power-ups and prompts and just the backgrounds and everything else, it can just be a lot. I lost sight of where my guy was more than a few times, or my head of my guy, or had to look around to find items. It just kind of got in the way of the fun, and by the end of the game, it kind of felt more frustrating than enjoyable. And this is largely due to the fact that it kind of just felt like a guessing game. Now, I don't want to say this is the entire experience, as it's not fully a guessing game, but there were just many moments where I kind of just felt like I didn't know what I was doing, or just kind of couldn't tell what I was doing. I was hitting the wrong barriers and just constantly taking time off myself, and I didn't really see a way around it. Like, the screen is just so busy, it's just hard to see everything. And that is, of course, counter to your actual skill. There were just as many moments where I was flying through things and dodging barriers and slicing through my targets and getting those power-ups and making the perfect shot. Like, there is a skill factor attached to this, I'm not going to deny that, but it is that luck factor that did hinder my fun. Now, of course, the stages do behave the same way every single time, so if you do memorize the levels, then you would know where to go, where not to go upon repeat plays, but that's more for score chasers, and that's not really my style of game. So once I got through this once, I was kind of done with it, whereas with Thumper, I was just kind of addicted to the gameplay. Now, outside of that luck factor, is really a pretty cool, beautiful looking game that is easy to pick up and play, and difficult to master. Thumper's influence is all over this thing, and it's clear in just the design, the boss battles, and even the more surreal and abstract level designs. I mean, it looks like a sequel to Thumper, like there's no joke, so if you love the art style in Thumper, which I did, you're gonna love that here. Some backgrounds are more static, others move a bit more. It's just a really beautiful looking game, and outside of Thumper, nothing quite looks like this. I mean, I can't even really describe some of the places you visit. I mean, it's like a weird kind of like mushroom, I don't even mushroom, just a weird kind of like grove thing. There's like a wintry kind of forest stage. You're in space sometimes. It's all over the map. It's just, every stage is cool looking, and it's so abstract it doesn't really matter what the location might look like because it doesn't apply to anything. It just looks cool, and I mean, it's hard to complain about good looking visuals, so this definitely has that going for it. As far as the audio goes, once again, it's kind of this surreal, abstract soundtrack, very, very similar to Thumper, and I really dig it. Surreal. It's not even music, it's just like almost like sounds sometimes, but it works. It fits with what's happening on screen, and it does kind of help set the mood that, you know, like you're battling for something. What? I don't know, but it all works. The presentation just works well together, and say what you want about this, but this is a striking looking and sounding game. Now, where do I sit on this as far as my actual fun factor? Overall, I had a good time with this. It's not perfect, and it doesn't reach the same laurels as Thumper, at least in my eyes, but this is still a pretty solid game, and I think my issues could be remedied in the future by either like showing where levels are going to load so you can move your eel out of the way, or I'm sure there's some kind of solution. I'm not a developer, but I feel like there's some way to improve the experience here. That being said, even with that improvement, there is still that luck factor, even as the, you know, some stages progress and things are moving around like crazy, and just like I said, it's kind of blinding. But besides that, I still had fun, and I'm sure many people out there will try and get good at this and actually have less problems than I will. But even with my issues, for $20, I think this is still a pretty decent bargain. It's something different in VR. It's great for VR newbies. The challenge factor is still super high if you do care about leaderboards, or just beating the game for that matter, and it's fairly easy to pick up and play, meaning you can show this off to friends and family, and I bet they'll be impressed. I'm going to give Thrasher a 7.5 out of 10. It can be frustrating, but it's still pretty damn fun. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to do all the YouTube things to help us out, and that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching.